threatening his neighbors. He switched Iraq's oil sales from dollars to euros. 3 years later, his country was invaded. His government was destroyed. And the very first thing the American-backed government did, before rebuilding schools, before restoring electricity, was switch Iraq's oil sales back to dollars. 9 years after that, Muammar Gaddafi tried something even bolder. He did not just want to sell oil in a different currency. He wanted to create a brand new one, a gold-backed African currency that would free the entire continent from Western financial control. NATO bombed his country into rubble. He was hunted down and killed in the street. And today, right now as you are watching this, black Africans are being sold in open-air slave markets in the country the West liberated. If you are paying attention to what just happened to Iran this weekend, you already know the pattern just repeated itself. Again. If you are new here, subscribe to Black Culture Unlocked right now, because what you are about to hear connects every single one of these wars to the same thing, and it is not what they told you on the news. There is an unspoken rule in the global economy. You can run your country however you want. You can be a dictator. You can crush protests. You can starve your people. As long as you sell your oil in American dollars, the United States will leave you alone. Saudi Arabia has one of the worst human rights records on earth. They execute people in public. They do not allow basic freedoms. And the United States has been their closest ally for decades. Not because of shared values, because Saudi Arabia props up the dollar. Here is how it works. After 1971, when the United States pulled the dollar off the gold standard, American money was no longer backed by anything physical. So the United States government made a deal. Oil-producing nations would sell their oil exclusively in United States dollars. In return, they would get American military protection and access to the global financial system. This is what is known as the petrodollar. It is the single most important economic arrangement in the modern world. As long as every country on Earth needs dollars to buy oil, there will always be demand for dollars. That demand is what keeps the American economy afloat. That demand is what allows the United States to print trillions without the currency collapsing. Break that arrangement, and you become an enemy of the state overnight. In October 2000, Saddam Hussein announced that Iraq would no longer accept US dollars for its oil. He switched the country's oil transactions to euros under the United Nations Oil for Food program. He also converted $10 billion in Iraqi reserves from dollars to euros. Western financial analysts called it irrational. They said Iraq would lose money on conversion fees. They said the euro was weaker than the dollar, and it made no financial sense. But Saddam wasn't making a financial decision. He was making a political one. He was telling the world that a sovereign nation does not have to bow to the dollar. And he was right at first. The euro rose in value, and Iraq actually made money on the switch. In 2003, the United States invaded Iraq. The stated reasons were weapons of mass destruction and links to terrorism. Both turned out to be false. No weapons were ever found. No links were ever proven. The entire justification was manufactured. But here is the part they do not teach in any classroom. After Saddam was removed, the new government, backed by the United States, quietly converted Iraq's oil sales back to dollars. No announcement. No press conference. It just happened. The war cost over 1 million Iraqi lives. It destabilized the entire Middle East. It created the conditions for the rise of ISIS. And when it was over, the dollar was back in charge. Mission accomplished. If you've been watching the news this weekend and wondering what's really going on, this is it. Hit that like button and subscribe, because the pattern doesn't stop with Iraq, Gaddafi, and the gold dinar. Now, here's where it gets personal for every black person watching this. In 2009, Muammar Gaddafi, who was chair of the African Union at the time, proposed something that terrified every Western financial institution on the planet. He wanted to create a unified African currency backed by gold. He called it the gold dinar. The plan was radical and it was specific. African and Muslim nations would sell oil and natural resources only for gold dinars, not dollars, not euros. Gold. Libya alone held 143 tons of gold reserves to back it. Countries like Nigeria, Tunisia, Egypt, and Angola were ready to join. Think about what that would have meant. Africa holds 30% of the world's mineral resources. It holds massive oil reserves across Libya, Nigeria, Angola, and Algeria. If those nations collectively refused to sell their resources for dollars and demanded gold instead, the entire Western financial system would have been shaken to its core. The plan was also designed to replace the CFA franc, the currency France forces its former African colonies to use to this day. 14 African nations are still required to store 50% of their foreign reserves in the French treasury. That's not economics. That's colonial extraction with a bank account. Gaddafi's gold dinar would have ended that. It would have given Africa financial independence for the first time since colonization. We know exactly how the West reacted because the emails were leaked. In 2015, a cache of Hillary Clinton's emails became public. One of them, from her advisor Sidney Blumenthal, stated plainly that French intelligence had discovered Gaddafi's gold currency plan and that it directly influenced France's decision to lead the NATO attack on Libya. France's then-president Nicolas Sarkozy reportedly called Gaddafi a threat to the financial security of the world. Not a military threat, a financial one. A man leading a country of 6 million people was considered a threat to the global financial order because he wanted Africa to have its own money. In March 2011, NATO launched its bombing campaign. By October, Gaddafi was dead, dragged from a drain pipe and executed on camera. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton responded to the news on CBS by laughing and saying, "We came, we saw, he died." What Libya became. Now here's what the liberation of Libya actually produced. Before NATO intervened, Libya had the highest human development index in all of Africa. Free education. Free healthcare. The Great Man-Made River, the world's largest irrigation project, provided free fresh water across the country. Libya had no external debt. Per capita income was over $11,000, the fifth highest on the continent. Today, Libya ranks 105th in the world in human development, a fall of over 50 places. The country has been in a state of civil war for over a decade. At one point, there were an estimated 1,600 armed militias fighting for territory. There is no functioning central government. Infrastructure has collapsed. Power cuts are constant. The healthcare system is destroyed. And then there are the slave markets. In 2017, CNN sent an undercover team to Libya and documented something the world had not seen in centuries. Open-air auctions where black African migrants were being sold as slaves. A man on camera auctioned off human beings, calling them merchandise. The price, as low as $200 to $400 per person. The International Organization for Migration confirmed that 73% of migrants in Libya were being subjected to forced labor. People from Nigeria, Ghana, Niger, Mali, and across sub-Saharan Africa were kidnapped, beaten, tortured, and sold. Women were forced into sexual slavery. People who could not pay their ransom were worked to death. A United Nations Human Rights Council report in 2023 confirmed that crimes against humanity were being committed against migrants in Libya, and that European Union policies were contributing to the crisis by funding the very militias carrying out the abuse. This is what happened when the West liberated Libya from the man who wanted to free Africa from the dollar. They turned the wealthiest nation on the continent into a failed state with slave markets. The same NATO that said it was intervening to protect human rights created conditions where black people are being bought and sold in parking lots. Share this video right now. Send it to someone who thinks these wars are about freedom and democracy. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment, because the pattern just happened again. Iran, this weekend, the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military strike on Iran. They called it Operation Epic Fury. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed. Dozens of senior military and government officials were killed alongside him. Bombs fell across 24 of Iran's 31 provinces. Over 1,200 munitions were dropped in a single day. Iran retaliated by striking U.S. military bases across the Gulf, in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE. American service members have been killed. Airports across the Middle East were shut down. The Strait of Hormuz, the most critical oil route on Earth, was closed. And here is the detail they are not emphasizing in the coverage. Iran had been planning to launch its own oil bourse, a trading exchange where oil could be bought and sold in currencies other than the dollar. As far back as 2007, Iran announced plans to open the oil bourse in Tehran, where nations could trade hydrocarbons without ever touching a US dollar. Almost immediately, the rhetoric about Iran shifted. Weapons of mass destruction, nuclear programs, threats to regional stability, the same playbook. Every time. And here's the part that makes it worse. Just one day before the strikes began, Oman's foreign minister announced that Iran had agreed to full nuclear verification and had committed to never stockpiling enriched uranium. A diplomatic breakthrough was within reach. Peace was, in his words, within reach. The bombs started falling anyway. President Trump told The Atlantic that Iran should have done it sooner, and that they waited too long. He had already stated publicly that regime change in Iran would be the best thing that could happen. Regime change, the same words used before Iraq, the same words used before Libya. So let's lay it out. Saddam Hussein switched oil sales from dollars to euros in 2000. He was invaded in 2003. He was killed in 2006. Iraq's oil was switched back to dollars. Muammar Gaddafi proposed a gold-backed African currency in 2009. NATO bombed Libya in 2011. He was killed in October 2011. Libya became a failed state. Black Africans are now sold in slave markets in the country he once led. Iran announced plans for a non-dollar oil exchange. They have been targeted with sanctions, sabotage, and assassinations for years. And as of this weekend, their supreme leader is dead, and their country is being bombed. Every leader who tried to break free from the dollar was destroyed. Every single one. And every time, the people who suffer the most, the people caught in the crossfire, the people displaced, the people exploited in the aftermath, are black and brown people. It was Iraqi civilians who died by the hundreds of thousands. It's black Africans who are enslaved in post-Gaddafi Libya. It will be the poorest people in the Middle East who bear the cost of what's happening right now. This isn't a conspiracy theory. The Clinton emails are public. The Iraq invasion timeline is documented. The slave markets are on video. The Iran strikes happened 2 days ago. The pattern is the point. And the pattern says this was never about weapons. It was never about terrorism. It was never about democracy. It is about the dollar. It has always been about the dollar. This is black culture unlocked. The reason this story matters to black people specifically is because the single greatest attempt to give Africa financial independence, the gold dinar, was crushed by the same forces that claim to stand for freedom. It did not bring freedom. It brought slave markets. They killed the man who wanted to free Africa's money. Then they let Africa's people be sold. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button. Subscribe. Share this with everyone. Drop a comment below. Did you know these wars were connected? Did you know about the gold dinar? Because once you see the pattern, you can never unsee it. Stay aware. Stay awake. Stay unlocked.
David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, breaking news, the war in Iran, President Trump's new demand, and is Russia now helping Iran find U.S. troops across the region? And tonight, right here, the video of an American F-15 fighter jet being shot down by a Kuwaiti warplane in the air. President Trump now demanding Iran's unconditional surrender. Tonight, the White House is asked what that unconditional surrender looks like. Airstrikes intensifying across Iran, and Iran Iranian drone carrier struck at sea up in flames. Sources now telling ABC News Tonight the U.S. believes Russia is providing intelligence to help Iran target American forces. And tonight, we're now seeing the video showing the moment a U.S. fighter jet was mistakenly shot down by a Kuwaiti warplane in the air. Ian Panel standing by live from the region. Tonight with much of...
All right. If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time. Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., also called the CRCS for short. And we are live on the air this day, Tuesday, the 6th of April, 2021. Mr. Fuller's on the air. He is in Washington, D.C., and he will be with you momentarily. The numbers to call to get in contact with this show is 516-453-9921. And be sure to depress the number 1 button and you will get in line for the call. And then you may answer your questions. Keep in mind, if I cue you in, you can be heard. So you don't have to ask, can I be heard? You can be heard. And if you can't, then I would let you know so you don't have to do that. That way Mr. Fuller can get right to your questions. If you would like to Gmail me, you can at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And you will get in rotation on that. You can also get into the chat room, as a few people have already got into the chat room, so we thank you for that. That fills up quite a bit. Okay, I think that's all the house cleaning that I have to do. Keep in mind this also, that all the materials that you will need for this program can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. And all the information that you would need concerning this show and anything else, books, upcoming shows, there are also past shows on there. And if Mr. Fuller is going to be on the Carl Nelson show on WOR Radio, 1450 on the AM dial, he will also let us know when they tell him. And if he tells me before time, then I will let you know so that you can tune in. That way, everything is where it should be. Okay, I think that's all. I'm sorry? WOL. Yeah, WOL. Yeah, WOL Radio, the Carl Nelson Show. And when he gets the information, then he will give that to me, and then I will relay that to you. Okay, let's start off today's show, and of course when I do that, guess what, my screen goes blank. But anyway, let's start off today's show. From last week, a caller, Mr. Fuller, you had said something about what you eat, and somebody wrote in, Derek wrote in and said this. Derek, yeah, this is what he said. He said a few weeks ago a caller asked Mr. Fuller foods he eats. Mr. Fuller responded, vegetable soup and lots of beans. I found a brochure reprinted by the National Cancer Institutes and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Mr. Fuller was absolutely correct about his food choices, and I just want to thank him for sharing that wisdom. Stay safe. Derek G. He's for the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. So, Mr. Fuller, he just wanted to give you thanks for that. And do you eat that almost every day, or some combination of that, or what?
Well, I do. Just about every other day for sure. Beans with a combination of spinach cooked, because there's been some recent talk about spinach being having some type of poison in it. So if you cook it, though, that whatever that problem is, it kind of goes away. Spinach and lettuce of some types, romaine lettuce. There's been some talk about leafy vegetables having some type of poison that comes from the soil that has to do with the way people handle it and all of that. I don't know all the details, but they said if you cook it, it should be safe, particularly spinach. So you put your spinach and your beans, and you make soup. And spinach, if you boil it with the soup, just boil it slightly. The spinach and soup, and the beans and cauliflower, mixed vegetables of different types that you get in a bag. Sometimes you can get it, it goes into the microwave, steam. That's the way I do it sometimes. And then dump it into a pot. And you got a variety of soup with a lot of vegetables in it. Grape tomatoes, and you don't want to put too many items in there, but have a just about everything you can think of that's supposed to be healthy in the vegetable line. And that's what I do. And just put it in there, and with plenty of chicken broth and water, or vegetable broth, and I just try it, and it's tasty, and I eat it. I think the lunch wagon should come up with soups, particularly in the wintertime. You might add some noodles, and maybe slice up some roasted chicken, put that in there too. They say, well, wow, it looks like you're going way beyond soup. You're going to have something else now if you keep putting stuff in there. But it doesn't work out that way. It seems that way it might. You put a lot of items in there, which I do. And, but it's very tasty.
Okay. Do you eat any breads or anything like that?
I kind of stay away from breads. I do.
Okay.
But if I use bread at all, it'll be wheat bread. But I've been advised that you don't necessarily need a lot of bread. You kind of stay away from it because it's not the healthiest of foods. Bread really isn't.
Okay.
Maybe, but people have always depended on bread. Down to the ages, that's what they say, your daily bread. That's even biblical. But the way they make bread, that's what it comes down to. What bread is really healthy? I'd have to find that out myself. If there are any breads that are put out that are super healthy, that are really going to give you energy and nutrition, rather than just fill you up and weight you down. This is what a lot of artificial and fatter. But you're getting weaker and fatter. You're blowing up like a balloon, but it's all air and no energy. It's all dead calories. It's not real food. Imitation food. Same way as the white supremacists are doing with sex. Imitation sex. And a lot of other things. Imitation religion. Everything imitation. Everything artificial. No substance. No
Okay.
calories.
You know, in the chat, in the chat room, JMCL5078 says that he also cooks like that, Mr. Fuller. He says that I bake my soup in the oven in stone pottery. Do you use, have you used that method yourself, or you just put it on
I
top of
haven't.
this?
Maybe I should look into it. There's a lot of things I have to look into. And, I just don't know.
Yes.
We're in a confusing society. The system of racism has made everything so confusing. Look at the ads on television. Take this type of medicine. Take that type of medicine. But watch out for the side effects. Now, the medicine will cure, allegedly, about 2 or 3 things. But the side effects, well, when you take this now, it'll ruin your kidneys. And it'll definitely, put your liver out of business forever. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Yes.
If you look at the side effects, and the side effects list, it's about 200 things there.
Yes.
But you won't cure your headache. You won't have a headache, but you'll be dead.
Wow.
That's basically what they're saying.
Okay. Well, anyway, Derek, wanted to make sure that you got that message, and his friend or cousin in North Carolina, Roland, appreciated that also in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're going to get on with today's show. D.D. Carr, thank you for your suggestion, and here we go. We're getting ready to go to the callers. Matter of fact, we're getting ready to go to Darnell, and this is what we're going to say, or try to say. Darnell, you are on and you can be heard. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I have a question, Mr. Bobby. Is it okay if I do a VGQ and a question?
Very quickly, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, my VGQ is on Tuesdays from 9 to 11. I enjoy spending time with Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller, because staying on code has made my life, my overall lifestyle, much more satisfactory and much more productive. And my question for Mr. Fuller is, what do you mean by the quote that you have on the front of the book and on the front of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept book? And it's throughout the book a couple times. It's in the back with the concepts, general concepts for quotations for thought, speech, and action, and it is the statement. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. What do you mean by that, Mr. Fuller? Thank you.
What I mean by that is that's the dominant influence on the planet. And if you don't understand the thing that governs everything that you do, you're going to be confused about everything. And I'm saying that it's either true or false, and everybody should always think about that, because I could be making a huge mistake. But I believe it because it was only when I began to look into racism and its effects that I began to understand the entire world that I live in and all the things that apply to me in every area of activity. Economics,
education,
when I
entertainment,
go to school, what are they teaching?
labor,
They're teaching the glorification of white supremacy.
politics, religion, sex,
But I didn't know that until I put it in that frame of reference. I didn't think about it that way. I've studied, history classes, civics classes, political seminars and all that. But I couldn't put it all together if I left out the factor of racism. Because when I started looking at everything being tainted, you might say, maybe I shouldn't, everything being poisoned, I prefer to use that word, by racism, then everything always came into view. I mean, everything came together real quick. If I always thought of now, okay, I'm in this seminar, and they're talking about religion, or they're talking about sex, or they're talking about war, or they're talking about politics. If I immediately put my mind on, no, everything that they're talking about is going to be within the context of racism. Can't leave out racism. You're talking about labor or law, and how the laws are written and what they apply to and who they apply to. You leave out racism, you're going to get confused. If you're talking about labor, you leave out racism, you're going to get confused. If you talk about economics, the use of time and energy, trade laws, money, if you talk about politics, border crossings and all that, you're talking about racism. Racism, racism, racism. Everything is drowned in racism. And when I started looking at the entire world like that, everything became easier to figure out. That whatever, if I was just having a conversation with somebody on a bus or whatever the conversation was about, and I left out the factor of racism, I always felt like I should be scratching my head because it's something that doesn't add up here. It's something that I'm not considering that's left out, but I don't know what that something is. And so I start frowning up. You know, I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something missing in this conversation. But if I throw racism in that mix, then everything came clear. Everything. Just jump right out at you. And that's what I meant by that statement. If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you. Any kind of contract you make, you get ready to buy a house or anything, you leave out racism, you're going to go into a head-scratching mode, meaning when you're scratching your head, it means there's a question somewhere, or a dozen questions, or 10 dozen questions, which means what? Where there's a question, there's what? Confusion. Answers to questions get rid of confusion. And when you attach to racism to every question that has to do with people on planet Earth in 2021, when you attach racism to it, everything comes clear real quick. I mean, it just rushes to the head of the line. Why? Because it's the truth, that's why. Racism affects everything and everybody 24/7. And everything is soaking in this thing called racism in the form of white supremacy, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, Darnell, thank you for your call, and I don't have to tell you, but I say this anyway. Don't be a stranger. Okay, Terry, in Pennsylvania, we're getting ready to, Pittsburgh, we're getting ready to get you, but Mr. Fuller, I was asked to ask you, when you mentioned about spinach, I guess there are a few of us that hadn't heard of that, some of it being having some kind of contaminant on that. When you do cook it, have you ever cooked it in olive oil with fresh spinach, in olive oil and garlic?
I put a little bit of olive oil in some soups that I make.
Yeah. Okay.
And, but for the most part, I just put in vegetable broth that comes in the box. And,
Okay.
I also put in olives. I have a jar of olives and whatnot. just put in as many olives as you think you like. If you like olives, which I do. And, but now for years, people have asked me about nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm just a person just like everybody else. I go to the cabinet and I see what I can. I go to the refrigerator. I see what's there to eat. And so I make the most of trying to eat healthy because I want to be healthy.
Yes, sir.
But I want to say to everybody out there, you have to be careful about recommending foods. I'm just talking about what I eat.
Yes,
But I may not be eating this all the time, or may stop eating it altogether, because in this world in which the racists don't care about poisoning people, and actually will use poison and have proven that down through the years to kill people deliberately. If you start putting out a list of things that black people should be eating, well, the racists know how to take care of that because they say, I provide the food for the entire world. So if that's what black people are going to be eating, I'm going to put something in there that's going to poison their brains. So they're going to walk around acting crazy all day. And they ain't going to know why they're crazy. But this particular food is real popular with them. So I'm going to see to it that most of the food that I ship to them is real popular with them. It's going to be poison. It's going to poison their minds. Because I know how to make poisons that will go to this a certain part of the body. It won't affect their body. Their body will be full of energy. But they'll be as crazy as they can be. Because when it gets to a certain part of their brain, this particular food is going to poison that part of the brain. So so you have to be careful about what you recommend in the system of white supremacy, because if you're black, you're subject to the system of white supremacy. It's not any magic food coming from outer space. You get your food from them, directly or indirectly.
Alrighty. We will move on to Terry from the beautiful city of downtown Pittsburgh. Terry, you are the caller and you can be heard. What is your question for Mr. Neely Fuller Jr.?
Well, first of all, grand rising to both of you gentlemen, Mr. Fuller and Bob.
Yes, sir.
I just want to state that I'm a therapist calling from beautiful downtown Pittsburgh. That's what I said.
Yes.
And we had a group, a special interest group, and we were discussing about the racial unrest in this country and around the world, and how we as therapists might best help people who are suffering from it, which is all people of color, but that was the question. And when I mentioned that racism is white supremacy, the group of people that was consisting of white people, black people, and other people of color, people got really upset. Power dynamic. That, there really is one form of racism, and that's white supremacy, full stop. The therapists of color became a little agitated, and they told me, well, we don't know how to present this to the superiors because that might offend them. How will we present this to the superiors? How can we speak from our own voices? And I asked the question, well, whose voice are you going to speak from? They didn't know what to say. So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Fuller, what might be a good approach to speak to these people who really earnestly want to help other folks that are suffering from this supremacy and causing them a lot of problems? That's my question.
Thank you, Terry. Mr. Fuller?
I always tell people, when you, with white people and black people, and you're having meetings talking about problem solving, never bring up race. That might be surprising coming from me, but that's code. You are not the person to bring it up, according to the code. Why? Because it doesn't get constructive results. So you always want to come out of something with the results that you went in for. That's code. You want the results. So, I'm writing a book on racism. I'm talking about racism right now. That's the centerpiece. But you don't start off that way. You start off always talking about the production of justice, which is where you intend to go ultimately anyway. And then what you start doing is putting the filling in that pie, which is basically, you start off saying, well, the end product is a thing called justice. That's the center stage project that you want, that you're aiming for, meaning guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. And you have to define it now, not just talk about justice in the abstract. You say, what is justice? See, all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. So when you're in these seminars or in these meetings, and even just if it's a so-called informal meeting, you're at some white person's house that you've invited to come to talk about it, solving black people's problems and white people's problems, the problems in general. Always make center stage. Well, this discussion basically is going to be about seeing to it that justice prevails. Now, what is justice? That's the question. But the code says it is.
Guaranteed